Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Finally, getting some changes within this Florida State program heading into their matchup against Clemson on Saturday, most notably at the quarterback position. DJU still listed as the starter with an or designation with quarterback Brock Glenn. I'm still quite frustrated, with Mike Norvell in this Florida State program for kind of a multitude of reasons. Let's start with the quarterback position. Yeah, I want to start with the timing of making this quarterback change. What makes you think that this is the week to all of a sudden go with Brock Glenn and let him get a chance to show what he can do within this Florida State offense against the best defense that you might see all season, certainly the best defense that you've seen up until this point? Thrusting Brock Glenn out there with an offensive line that can't pass protect, with an offense that can't run the football, with wide receivers that can't separate. The timing of this quarterback change to me makes me scratch my head, gets me a little bit frustrated in terms of the management. But I think, secondly, there's not enough changes that are going on with this Florida State program. I mean, we are 5 games into the season. This Florida State team has looked like one of the worst teams at the Power 5 level, Power 4 level, I should say, and we're not really seeing Mike Norvell try to mix anything up, because you look at the rest of the depth chart, there are still plenty of football players that will be starting for Florida State on Saturday that, quite frankly, just have no business starting at a program like Florida State. So one, just still the lack of changes that we are seeing be made. We're going to talk about a few other changes in just a little bit, but then the timing of going with Brock Glenn at quarterback, that also is moderately frustrating. Like, if you were going to make the change, why wouldn't you make the change going into Cal or going into SMU, where you're going to get a defense where maybe Brock Glenn can get something going for this Florida State offense? Because, quite frankly, look, the Florida State fans that have watched every single snap of this Florida State team in 2024 know that, yeah, DJU has not been very good. Probably shouldn't be starting for Florida State, but there are so many other problems within this Florida State offense. What makes you think that this is the right game to put Brock Glenn in there? Now, there's kind of two arguments, right? One, let Brock Glenn go. You probably understand that this offense is going to struggle against Clemson, but let him go make some mistakes. You're going into a bye week. Let him get 2 weeks getting into the film, taking a look at what he needs to do better and what he did well. I think that makes sense. There's certainly an argument for that, but I think, secondly, you just look at how you've managed a young quarterback like Brock Glenn and said, "Hey, we thrusted him out there against Georgia with a completely depleted roster in the bowl game." We haven't put Brock Glenn in a single position to be successful at Florida State during his career there. Complete mismanagement, at least in my opinion, of the quarterback room. Want to get a little bit into more of the quarterback play, but I think more importantly, talk about some other changes that I think need to take place for this Florida State team. Now, before we get into it, as always, to the Florida State fans, look, y'all know I love talking this program. It's not been as fun to talk about this program over the last couple of weeks. Y'all continue to show a ton of support to the boys. Appreciate y'all. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, look, there are so many different frustrations and ways to look at this team, and I'm probably not going to sum it all up entirely. I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section in terms of changes you would like to see made with this Florida State team, not only going into 2024, but the significant changes that we're going to need to see during this offseason going into 2025. Without further ado, let's get into this one. And you look at the quarterback play and say, yeah, DJU, not good. 53% completion percentage, 4 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. He's 5 of 20, pushing the ball 20 plus yards down the field. That is absolutely brutal. He cannot extend plays. He can't run some of that RPO stuff that Florida State wants to run. This is an offense that, well, I don't think they put DJU in a ton of positions to be successful because they can't run the football. I don't think the wide receiver play is anywhere near to being good enough, and the offensive line hasn't been good. So we're going to put Brock Glenn out there, and you're going to hope for Brock Glenn to just bring a little bit of juice, because I think one of the frustrations that Florida State fans have is like, look, we watch this team every single Saturday. It is clear, specifically on the offensive side of the football, nobody wants to be out on the field. Like, there is no energy, no juice to the offensive view, and quite frankly, the whole team, but specifically the offense. So maybe Brock Glenn being a little bit more dynamic, being a little bit more of a young gun, can come out and provide a spark for Florida State. But I think a lot of Florida State fans probably understand Brock Glenn isn't, this offense isn't going to put up 50 points against this Clemson defense just because Brock Glenn comes in, because there are glaring problems with how this roster has been constructed, specifically on the offensive side of the football. The more important conversation I want to have is surrounding Mike Norvell and where to go with this Florida State team. And I think it starts with, look, if you want to be a leader, and I ain't much of a leader, it's not like I have a ton of experience in leadership positions, but I've seen really good leaders do some really good things and say, look at some other coaches across the country, some of the best leaders that we've seen in all of college football. They make hard decisions. Like one of the things I respect most about Mike Norvell, a lot of you guys know I'm a big fan of Mike Norvell, or really was a big fan, I should say, is that he's extremely loyal. He builds a strong culture. But this year, something is not right. And if you want to be an elite head coach, an elite leader of a college football program, you got to make hard decisions. And I understand being loyal to the coaching staff that you hired, the relationships that you've built within those walls. If things aren't working, and there are clear things that aren't working, not even just on the field, but on the recruiting trail and within this program, you got to be strong enough to make hard decisions and part ways with, coaches and other people within the program that just aren't doing a good enough job. There are plenty of guys, right? Linebacker coach probably is the one that sticks out the most, but you look at up and down this Florida State roster and say, why is Florida State in the predicament they are in 2024? I think it starts with just not getting it done on the recruiting trail. You don't have coaches that want it as bad on the recruiting trail than some other programs that you go up against year to year in the on the recruiting trail. You look at Georgia, you look at the Miami Hurricanes, you look at Alabama. These are coaching staffs that are just outworking Florida State on the recruiting trail. They want it a little bit more. They're building stronger relationships. It does seem like the recruiting battles Florida State is winning. I don't necessarily know if it's because this staff is outworking other staffs on the recruiting trail as much as, look, they have something right going with NIL. Like they're one of the better programs in terms of how they're using NIL. Now, the evaluation of personnel is another conversation we can have, but in terms of generating funds to build a roster, it's there. I would be very surprised if Florida State's not spending top 10 in terms of how much money they spent building this roster. But you look at recruiting the high school ranks, it hasn't been good enough. We've kind of said this during the offseason. We were hoping it would kind of move in the right direction with a massive season in 2023, but it just hasn't. And recruiting lies normally on position coaches. And you just have a certain amount of position coaches that, one, aren't recruiting at a high enough level, certainly are not developing at a high enough level. And then when you're relying on the transfer portal, then you miss in the transfer portal. This is how you get a team where you're under-talented, you're underdeveloped, and then the transfer portal additions that you brought in are not good enough to cover up for the mistakes that have been going on within this Florida State program. And so to kind of to round this out, Mike Norvell's got to make significant changes. And I don't know when the changes are going to come. They might come after this week against Clemson going into the bye week. They might come after the season. But if you're Mike Norvell, I think you have to have a complete overhaul in terms of how this Florida State program is being run. And yeah, it's difficult. I never get up here and like kind of bang the table for people to get fired because it is losing your job. But at the same time, like, you owe it to the fans, you owe it to the program to get guys in there that are going to do a good job and build Florida State the right way back to kind of where they belong as a program. I want to see significant changes. I want to see significant change with the personnel on the team. I want to see a lot more young guys getting opportunities to show what they can do. And I want to see significant changes in terms of how this program is being run. And that starts with the personnel that is around Mike Norvell. I expect to see changes. I don't know when we're going to get it. Would love to hear the changes that you guys want to see in the comment section. Again, we'll close it out there. The amount of support y'all continue, the highs, the lows, the Florida State fans, you guys continue to show a ton of love. Appreciate y'all. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.